My parents painted my hair while I was sleeping. They wanted me to find a job. Hi Reddit, I'm Amanda, and I'm 30 years old. Honestly, I never thought I'd still be living with my parents at this age. But the economy is brutal right now. Rent prices are through the roof, and the job market is, well, let's just say challenging. I work part-time at a local bookstore, but it's not enough to afford an apartment on my own. So here I am, back in my childhood bedroom, trying to make the best of it. Let me set the scene for you. My room hasn't changed much since high school. It's got pale yellow walls, a small bookshelf crammed with old novels, and my creaky twin bed with the floral comforter I've had since I was 16. I like to think of it as a little time capsule of who I used to be, and for the most part, it's a comfort to be in a familiar space. But lately, things haven't felt so comforting. In fact, they've started to feel strange. First, a little about me. I've always been proud of my hair. It's this rich, dark brown color that I've never touched with dye. It's long, almost to my waist, and I take care of it religiously. I'm talking expensive shampoos, conditioners, silk pillowcases, the works. My hair is kind of my thing, you know? About a month ago, I noticed something odd. One morning, I woke up and saw faint stains on my pillowcase. They were kind of yellowish, almost like a diluted dye or chemical. At first, I thought maybe it was sweat or something, but it didn't make sense. I've been using the same type of pillowcase for years, and this had never happened before. I tried to brush it off, but then I noticed the smell. My shampoo didn't smell right. I always use this lavender and chamomile brand that's subtle and soothing, but one day it reeked of something chemical, like bleach or peroxide. I even asked my mom about it. Did you buy me a different shampoo by mistake? I asked her one evening as she was chopping vegetables in the kitchen. She didn't even look up. No, why would I do that? It smells weird, I pressed. Like chemicals. She shrugged. Maybe you're just imagining things. That's when I started paying closer attention. I noticed my hair seemed different. It wasn't dramatic at first, just a little lighter in certain spots, especially near the ends. I thought maybe it was the lighting, or that I was being paranoid, but the more I looked, the more obvious it became. I confronted my mom again. Are you sure you didn't accidentally switch my shampoo? This time, she gave me a weird smile. Amanda, you're overthinking it. Maybe it's the water. You know, minerals can sometimes lighten hair. Her explanation didn't sit right with me. We've lived in this house for over 20 years, and the water has never lightened my hair before. It wasn't just the shampoo, though. I started noticing other things. My brush would have more hair in it than usual, which was alarming. And my room? It felt invaded. Like someone had been in there when I wasn't around. Things would be slightly out of place. A drawer half opened. A pair of earrings on the dresser that I didn't remember taking out. One day, I came home from work and noticed my window was open. I never leave my window open because we've had issues with bugs getting in. I asked my dad about it, and he just shrugged. Maybe you forgot, he said. But I hadn't forgotten. The strangest incident happened last week. I was doing laundry in the basement when I noticed a bottle of bleach sitting on the shelf above the washer. Now, I know my mom uses bleach for whites sometimes, but this bottle was nearly empty, and we don't do enough laundry to go through it that quickly. I went upstairs and asked her about it. Hey, why's the bleach almost gone? She looked startled for a split second before recovering. I used it on some old linens. They had stains. Since when do you care about stains on old linens? I asked. She gave me a tight smile. Why are you so obsessed with bleach all of a sudden? Her tone made me drop the subject, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Then, yesterday, I woke up to find a strand of hair on my pillow that wasn't mine. It was blonde, like platinum blonde. I don't know anyone with hair like that, and my parents' hair is nothing like it. My mom's is dark, like mine, and my dad's is salt and pepper. So where the hell did this blonde hair come from? I'm starting to feel paranoid, like I'm being gaslit in my own home. My parents have always been supportive, but now I'm questioning everything. Are they messing with me? If so, why? I don't want to jump to conclusions, but I can't ignore the weirdness anymore. I've started keeping my bedroom door locked at night, and I'm thinking about setting up a camera to see if anything happens when I'm not around. Has anyone else dealt with something like this? Am I losing my mind? Or is there something seriously off here? Hi, it's Amanda again. I wasn't sure if I should post an update so soon, but after everything that's happened in the last week, I need advice more than ever. This is going to sound insane, but I swear every word of it is true. After my last post, I decided I couldn't live with the paranoia anymore. I had to know what was going on in my house, especially in my bedroom. So, I dug out my old tablet from college, one of those cheap ones that barely holds a charge but has a decent enough camera. I downloaded a basic security app that could record motion and set it up in a corner of my room, hidden behind a stack of books on my shelf. The angle wasn't perfect, but it covered my bed and most of the room. That first night, I could barely sleep knowing the camera was there. I kept imagining all the crazy possibilities. Was I being pranked? Was someone sneaking into the house? By morning, I felt ridiculous. Maybe I was just overthinking everything, like my mom had said. But when I checked the footage the next morning, my stomach dropped. It was my parents. At 2:34 a.m., the door to my room creaked open, and in walked my mom and dad. My mom was carrying a small bottle of something, and my dad had gloves on. I watched in shock as they tiptoed to my bed, leaned over me, and started working on my hair. My mom was applying something from the bottle, while my dad held sections of my hair apart. They were careful, deliberate, like they'd done this 100 times before. I felt sick. I stopped the video and just stared at the screen, my heart pounding. Why would they do this? What were they putting in my hair? Was it dye? Chemicals? The footage was grainy, but it was enough to confirm my worst fears. My parents were behind the changes to my hair. I needed proof, more proof. So, I decided to let the camera roll for a few more nights. Each morning, I'd check the footage, and each time, it was the same. My parents sneaking in, my mom applying something to my hair, and my dad assisting. It was like a creepy, unwanted nighttime ritual. By the third day, I knew I had to confront them, but I wanted more evidence. I started searching the house for anything that could explain what they were doing. In the bathroom cabinet, I found an unmarked bottle tucked behind some old toiletries. The liquid inside was clear with a faint chemical smell, definitely not shampoo. I took a photo of it with my phone before putting it back exactly where I'd found it. Then, I checked the trash. That's where I hit the jackpot. Buried under tissues and food wrappers were empty bottles of hair dye, all in shades of light brown and blonde. I counted 6 in total, along with used gloves and wads of paper towels stained with the dye. I felt like I was piecing together a sinister puzzle. The final blow came when I found a crumpled receipt in the kitchen trash. It was for $250 worth of premium hair care products from a high-end salon in town. The date on the receipt was almost 10 months ago, the exact time frame when I first started noticing changes in my hair. My parents had been doing this to me for nearly a year. I couldn't keep this to myself any longer. That evening, I confronted them in the living room. I started with the footage. Care to explain this? I asked, holding up my tablet and playing the video. My mom's face turned white. My dad looked away, muttering something I couldn't hear. What the hell are you doing to my hair? I demanded, my voice shaking. Why are you sneaking into my room at night? My mom finally spoke. Amanda, it's not what you think. Then what is it? Because it looks like you're dyeing my hair while I'm asleep. She sighed and exchanged a glance with my dad, who still wouldn't meet my eyes. We were trying to help you. Help me? I laughed bitterly. By sabotaging my hair? By lying to me? You've always been so attached to your hair, she said. But we thought a change might be good for you. A change? Without my consent? While I'm asleep. My dad finally spoke up. It's not just about the hair, Amanda. You've been stuck. Living at home, not moving forward. We thought if you looked different, you might feel different. More confident. Maybe you'd try harder to get out there, meet people, find a better job. I was speechless. You thought messing with my hair would fix my life? Are you serious? They tried to justify it, saying it was for my own good, but all I could hear was their betrayal. They'd violated my trust, invaded my privacy, and gaslit me for months. I felt like I didn't even know them anymore. I stormed out of the house and drove aimlessly for hours, trying to process everything. When I finally came back, my mom was waiting in the kitchen. She apologized, said they'd stop, and promised to throw out all the dye and chemicals. But how can I trust them after this? How can I ever feel safe in my own home again? Hey Reddit, it's Amanda again. After everything I uncovered, the video footage, the empty dye bottles, and that outrageous receipt, I knew it was time to confront my parents properly. The shock of realizing they'd been sneaking into my room at night to dye my hair still hadn't worn off. But now, it was mixed with anger and betrayal. That night, I sat them down in the living room. My mom, Linda, was folding laundry, and my dad, Ron, was engrossed in the news. I could feel my heart pounding as I grabbed my tablet from the coffee table. I need to show you both something, I said, my voice trembling but firm. My mom looked up, surprised by my tone. What's wrong? I didn't answer. Instead, I opened the security app and played the video. The screen lit up with the footage of them sneaking into my room, my mom applying dye to my hair, and my dad assisting like some kind of accomplice in a heist. The room was silent except for the muffled audio of their movements in the video. When the clip ended, I looked up at them, waiting for an explanation. My mom's face turned a deep shade of red. My dad shifted uncomfortably in his chair, but didn't say a word. Well? I pressed, my voice rising. Care to explain why you've been dyeing my hair without my consent? While I'm asleep. My mom finally broke the silence. Amanda, you're overreacting. It's not as bad as you're making it out to be. Overreacting? I repeated, incredulous. You've been sneaking into my room, messing with my hair, and lying to me for months. How is that not a big deal? My dad sighed and leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. We didn't mean to upset you, he said. We just thought. Well, we thought you needed a little push. A push. I snapped. To do what? To take better care of yourself, my mom interjected. Her tone was defensive, almost accusing. Amanda, you've been so unkempt lately. Your hair was looking dull and lifeless. We just wanted to help you look more presentable. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So, instead of talking to me about it, you decided to gaslight me and invade my privacy? It wasn't like that, my mom insisted. We were trying to do something nice for you. Nice? You call this nice? I was practically shouting now. Do you have any idea how violated I feel? You've made me question my sanity for months, and for what? Because you think I'm unkempt? My dad finally spoke up again, his tone exasperated. Amanda, this isn't just about your hair. Look at your life. You're 30 years old, living at home, working part-time at a bookstore. You're stuck. We thought a change might help you snap out of it. I stared at him, stunned. You think messing with my hair is going to fix my life? Do you have any idea how ridiculous that sounds? It's not ridiculous, my mom said firmly. Sometimes, people need a change on the outside to feel better on the inside. That's not your decision to make. I shot back. It's my body, my hair, my life. You had no right to do this. My mom crossed her arms and leaned back in her chair. Well, maybe if you weren't so stubborn, we wouldn't have had to. Stubborn? I echoed. I'm stubborn because I don't want you violating my privacy? Because I expect basic respect from my own parents? She didn't answer, but her expression said it all. She thought she was in the right. The conversation spiraled from there. Every time I tried to express how hurt and betrayed I felt, they doubled down on their justification. They brought up every perceived flaw in my life. My job, my lack of a social life, my reluctance to date. According to them, I was the problem, not their actions. At one point, my dad said, "We've spent thousands of dollars keeping this house running and letting you live here rent-free. The least you could do is listen to us when we're trying to help you. That doesn't give you the right to control me." I yelled. I'm an adult, not some doll you can dress up and fix. The argument went on for what felt like hours. By the end of it, I was exhausted, angry, and hurt beyond words. They refused to apologize, insisting they'd only been trying to help me. Instead, they turned the blame on me, accusing me of being ungrateful, immature, and overly dramatic. I went back to my room and slammed the door, locking it behind me. I sat on my bed, shaking with a mix of rage and sadness. I didn't know what to do. Moving out wasn't an option. I barely made enough to cover my car payment, let alone rent, but staying here felt unbearable. The next morning, I found a note on the kitchen counter. It was from my mom, written in her neat, precise handwriting. It read, "Amanda, we're sorry you're upset, but we still believe we did the right thing. You've been stuck for too long, and we just want what's best for you. Please try to see things from our perspective. Love, Mom." I crumpled the note and threw it in the trash. How could they still think they were in the right after everything? How could they not see how deeply they'd hurt me? I've started avoiding them as much as possible, staying in my room when I'm home and leaving the house whenever I can. But the tension is unbearable, and I don't know how much longer I can take it. I've been thinking about reaching out to a friend from college who lives a few hours away. Maybe I could crash with her for a while, just to get some space and figure out my next move. But part of me feels guilty for even considering it. They're my parents, and they've done so much for me over the years. But does that justify what they've done? Hi again. Reddit. It's Amanda, and I have another update. This one is big, and I'm still processing everything that happened. If you followed my story, you know my parents, Linda and Ron, have been sneaking into my room at night and dyeing my hair without my knowledge. When I confronted them, they refused to apologize, claiming it was for my own good. Since then, things at home have been unbearable. But last night, at their 35th wedding anniversary party, I made a statement I'll never forget, and neither will they. For weeks, my parents had been planning their anniversary party. It was going to be a big event, held at the local community center, with around 50 guests, family, friends, neighbors, and even some of my dad's coworkers. They'd been talking about it nonstop, obsessing over every detail: the catering, the music, the decorations. It was clear they wanted the night to be perfect. I hadn't planned to go at first. Things between us were still tense, and I didn't feel like celebrating them after everything they'd done. But then, an idea started forming in my mind. If they weren't going to take responsibility for their actions, maybe it was time to show everyone else who they really were. The idea felt bold, maybe even a little petty, but the more I thought about it, the more it felt right. They'd taken something deeply personal from me, my trust, my autonomy, and turned it into their secret project. I wanted to take that power back, in a way they couldn't ignore. The night of the party arrived, and the community center was decked out in gold and white streamers, fairy lights, and floral centerpieces. Guests were mingling, sipping champagne, and complimenting my mom on how beautiful everything looked. She was in her element, glowing with pride in a lavender dress that she'd probably spent weeks picking out. I showed up late, deliberately avoiding the pre-party small talk. When I walked in, I spotted my parents immediately. My mom was chatting with my Aunt Karen, and my dad was at the bar with Uncle Dave. Neither of them noticed me slip in, which was fine by me. I wasn't ready to face them just yet. The first hour of the party passed uneventfully. I made small talk with a few relatives and avoided any direct interactions with my parents. All the while, I kept glancing at the stage at the front of the room, where a microphone stood waiting for the toasts. My heart was pounding in anticipation, but I knew I had to wait for the right moment. Finally, the time came for the speeches. My dad's best friend, Tom, went first, sharing funny stories from their college days. Then my mom's sister, Aunt Carol, gave a sweet speech about their enduring love and commitment. The guests laughed and clapped, raising their glasses in celebration. Then my mom took the mic. She thanked everyone for coming and gushed about how much she and my dad appreciated the love and support of their family and friends. As she handed the microphone back to the DJ, I stood up. "Actually, I have something I'd like to say," I announced, walking to the front of the room. The room went silent. My parents exchanged a quick, confused glance as I stepped onto the stage and took the mic. My hands were shaking, but my voice was steady. "Hi, everyone," I began. "For those of you who don't know me, I'm Amanda, Linda, and Ron's daughter. First, I want to congratulate them on 35 years of marriage. That's a huge milestone, and I'm happy to see so many people here to celebrate with them." Polite applause followed. My parents smiled nervously, clearly unsure where I was going with this. "But tonight, I want to talk about something else," I continued. "I want to talk about trust, what it means to respect someone, to honor their boundaries, and to value their autonomy." I glanced at my parents. My mom's smile was frozen in place, and my dad was fidgeting in his seat. "For the past 10 months," I said, "my parents have been sneaking into my room at night and dyeing my hair without my knowledge or consent." Gasps rippled through the room. My mom's face went pale, and my dad looked like he wanted to sink into the floor. "I know it sounds unbelievable," I went on, "but I have proof. I set up a camera in my room and caught them in the act. They justified it by saying it was for my own good, claiming I looked unkempt and needed a change. But let me ask you this. What kind of parents violate their child's trust like that?" The room was dead silent. All eyes were on me, but I wasn't finished. "And since they've made it their mission to change how I look, I've decided to take matters into my own hands." With that, I reached into my bag and pulled out an electric razor. There were audible gasps as I turned it on and brought it to my head. The hum of the razor filled the room as I shaved off a section of my long, dark hair. I worked quickly, moving the razor back and forth until my scalp was bare. Clumps of hair fell to the floor as the guests watched in stunned silence. When I finished, I set the razor down and looked out at the crowd. "This is what taking control looks like," I said. "They thought they could change me without my consent, but they were wrong. This is my body, my hair, my choice." I stepped off the stage and walked out of the room, leaving behind a trail of hair and a room full of shocked faces. I drove home in a daze, the adrenaline wearing off and leaving me emotionally drained. I wasn't sure how my parents would react, but I didn't care. For the first time in months, I felt like I'd taken back some of the power they'd stolen from me. When I got home, I found a text from my mom. "How could you humiliate us like that? Do you have any idea how embarrassing that was?" I stared at the message, feeling a mix of anger and sadness. She still didn't get it. This wasn't about embarrassing them. It was about reclaiming my autonomy. I haven't responded yet, and I'm not sure I will. They're going to have to figure out on their own why what they did was so wrong. For now, I'm focusing on me and figuring out what's next. Hi, Reddit. It's Amanda again. If you've been following my story, you know I made a dramatic statement at my parents' 35th wedding anniversary party. I shaved my head in front of everyone to reclaim my autonomy after discovering they had been dyeing my hair without my consent for months. What I didn't expect was the sheer level of chaos that would follow. Things have been messy, to say the least. As soon as I walked out of the community center that night, I could hear the uproar behind me. Some guests were shouting, others were murmuring in hushed tones, and a few even ran after me. My cousin Melanie, who's always been something of a rebel herself, caught up with me in the parking lot. "Hey," she called out, slightly out of breath. "Amanda, wait." I turned around, clutching my bag and trying to hold back tears. "What, Melanie?" She gave me a crooked smile. "That was badass. I mean, absolutely nuts, but badass." Her words caught me off guard. I wasn't expecting anyone to support me, let alone Melanie, who's known in the family for stirring the pot. She hugged me tightly and whispered, "You did the right thing." I didn't feel like I'd done the right thing. I felt exhausted and numb, and part of me wanted to run back inside and apologize just to stop the yelling. But I knew there was no going back now. My parents would never let me live this down, and I wasn't sure I wanted to let them. Back inside, things were spiraling out of control. According to Melanie, who gave me the full rundown later, my mom burst into tears as soon as I left. She kept saying, "How could she do this to us? At our anniversary party?" Meanwhile, my dad was furious, accusing me of ruining the night on purpose. Guests were split down the middle. Some sympathized with my parents, saying I had gone too far, while others thought I was brave for standing up for myself. Uncle Dave, my dad's older brother, apparently made a snide comment about how my parents had been controlling Amanda since the day she was born, which didn't go over well. Aunt Carol, my mom's sister, called him out for being disrespectful, and the two of them started shouting at each other. By the time the night was over, the party had devolved into a full-blown family feud. The next morning, I woke up to a flurry of text messages and missed calls. Some were from supportive family members, like Melanie and Uncle Dave, who said they admired my courage. Others were from relatives who sided with my parents, accusing me of being immature, selfish, and ungrateful. My cousin Rachel, who's always been my mom's favorite, sent me a particularly scathing message. "You embarrassed your parents in front of everyone. They didn't deserve that, no matter what they did." I didn't respond to most of the messages. I didn't know what to say, and honestly, I was too drained to argue. Instead, I packed a bag and called my friend Lila, who lives about 80 kilometers away. Lila and I have been close since college, and she's one of the few people who truly understands me. When I told her what happened, she didn't hesitate. "Come stay with me," she said. "I've got a spare room, and you need to get out of that toxic environment." So I did. I left a note for my parents, explaining that I needed space and time to figure things out, and drove to Lila's place that afternoon. Her apartment is small but cozy, with mismatched furniture and walls covered in art prints. It feels like a safe haven, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. Lila has been amazing, letting me vent and helping me process everything. She even introduced me to her roommate, Jake, who's a hairstylist. When he saw my buzzed head, he said, "Girl, you're rocking this look," and offered to clean it up for me. It was a small gesture, but it made me feel a little more confident. Meanwhile, the fallout from the party has continued. My parents are furious that I left, and they've been calling and texting nonstop. My mom sent a long, guilt-trippy email about how much I'd hurt her and my dad, and how they'd only ever wanted what was best for me. She ended it with, "We love you, Amanda, but we don't understand why you're doing this to us." My dad, on the other hand, has been less emotional and more practical. He called me 3 times in one day to demand that I come home and fix this mess. When I didn't answer, he left a voicemail saying, "You need to apologize to your mother. She's been crying non-stop since the party." The family is still divided. Uncle Dave and Melanie have been vocal in their support, but Aunt Carol and Rachel are firmly on my parents' side. Even the neighbors have gotten involved, apparently. My mom has been venting to anyone who will listen, and now half the neighborhood knows about our fight. Some of them think I'm a brat. Others think my parents crossed a line. I'm trying to focus on rebuilding my life, one step at a time. I've started looking for a better job, something full-time that will allow me to afford my own place. Lila has been helping me update my resume and practice for interviews, and Jake even offered to put in a good word for me at the salon where he works, just in case. As for my parents, I don't know what the future holds. Part of me wants to repair our relationship, but another part of me wonders if it's worth it. They've shown me that they're willing to prioritize their own vision of who I should be over my autonomy and happiness, and I'm not sure how to move past that. For now, I'm focusing on myself. I've started journaling, trying to sort through my feelings and make sense of everything that's happened. I've also been exploring new hobbies, like painting and yoga, in an effort to reconnect with myself. It's not easy, but it feels like a step in the right direction. This whole experience has been exhausting and painful, but it's also been a wake-up call. I've realized that I can't keep living my life to please others, even if those others are my own parents. I need to take control of my own narrative, and that starts with setting boundaries and standing up for myself, even if it means shaving my head at an anniversary party. Hi, Reddit. It's Amanda again. After everything that's happened, leaving my parents' house, the chaos of the anniversary party, and moving in with my friend Lila, I've been trying to figure out how to rebuild my life. It hasn't been easy, but with the help of some amazing friends and a lot of determination, I'm finally starting to see a way forward. It all started with Lila. She's been my rock throughout this entire ordeal, and when I told her I wanted to move into my own place, she immediately jumped into action. "Let's make it happen," she said. "We'll figure it out together." Her enthusiasm was infectious, and for the first time in months, I felt like I had a real shot at gaining my independence. The problem, of course, was money. I didn't have much saved up, and my part-time job at the bookstore wasn't going to cut it. That's when Lila came up with an idea, a fundraiser. At first, I was hesitant. The thought of asking people for money felt awkward and uncomfortable, but Lila convinced me it was worth a try. "We'll make it fun," she said. "We can throw an event, maybe a small concert or an art auction. People love that kind of stuff." Her roommate Jake was on board right away. As a hairstylist and part-time musician, he had connections in the local arts and music scene. He reached out to a few friends, and before I knew it, we had a plan. The fundraiser would be a combination of a live music show and a silent art auction, held at a small venue downtown. The weeks leading up to the event were a whirlwind. Lila and Jake helped me spread the word on social media, and their friends pitched in with everything from designing posters to donating artwork for the auction. Even Melanie, my cousin who supported me during the anniversary fiasco, stepped up to help. She drove in from out of town with a trunk full of baked goods to sell at the event. The night of the fundraiser was incredible. The venue was packed with people, friends, acquaintances, and even a few strangers who had heard about my story online. Jake performed a short set with his band, and several local artists donated pieces for the auction. One of the highlights of the night was a vibrant painting by an artist named Tess, a friend of Lila's. It sold for $500, the highest bid of the evening. By the end of the night, we had raised $6,000. I couldn't believe it. I stood on stage to thank everyone, barely able to hold back tears. "You've given me more than just money," I said. "You've given me hope. Thank you, from the bottom of my heart." With the money from the fundraiser, I was able to put down a deposit on a small one-bedroom apartment. It's nothing fancy, just a modest unit in an older building, but it's mine. The rent is $1,200 a month, which is manageable for now with my job and some careful budgeting. Moving in was both exciting and daunting. The place was completely unfurnished, and I didn't have much to bring with me, but that just meant I had a blank canvas to work with. Lila and Melanie helped me scour thrift stores and online marketplaces for secondhand furniture. We found a cozy gray couch for $50, a wooden coffee table for $20, and a small dining table with mismatched chairs for free. My favorite find was a vintage dresser with intricate carvings, which I picked up for $40 at a flea market. It needed a little TLC, so Jake helped me sand it down and repaint it a soft mint green. It's now the centerpiece of my bedroom. As I settled into my new space, I felt a surge of freedom and creativity. For the first time in years, I felt like I had control over my life and my surroundings. I decided to embrace that feeling and start experimenting with my appearance, something I'd always been too afraid to do while living under my parents' roof. The first change I made was to my hair. Jake, being the amazing hairstylist that he is, offered to help me dye it. We chose a bright teal color, which felt bold and liberating. As he applied the dye, he joked, "You're going to look like a mermaid." When I saw the final result in the mirror, I couldn't stop smiling. It was so different from anything I'd ever done before, and it felt like a physical manifestation of my newfound independence. Next, I started experimenting with my wardrobe. I've always played it safe when it comes to fashion, sticking to neutral colors and simple styles, but now I wanted to try something new. I raided thrift stores for unique pieces, flowy bohemian dresses, edgy leather jackets, and even a pair of bright yellow boots that instantly became my favorite shoes. One day, While browsing at a local thrift shop, I met a woman named Clara. She was in her late 40s, with short, spiky hair and a quirky sense of style. We struck up a conversation, and I learned that she was an artist who ran a small gallery downtown. When I mentioned that I'd recently started experimenting with painting as a way of expressing myself, her eyes lit up. "You should come to one of our open studio nights," she said. "It's a great way to meet other artists and get inspired." I decided to take her up on the offer, and it turned out to be one of the best decisions I've ever made. The studio was a vibrant, welcoming space filled with artists of all skill levels. Clara introduced me to a group of people who quickly became my new friends, including a sculptor named Leo and a photographer named Mia. They encouraged me to keep experimenting with painting, and over time, I started to find my own style. One of my favorite pieces so far is a large abstract painting inspired by the ocean. It's a swirl of blues and greens with hints of gold, and it reminds me of my teal hair, my first act of rebellion and self-expression. I hung it in my living room, where it serves as a daily reminder of how far I've come. Of course, things haven't been perfect. I still get the occasional guilt-trippy text from my mom, and some family members refuse to talk to me altogether. But I'm learning to focus on the positive and surround myself with people who support and uplift me. The fundraiser, the apartment, the new friends, and the experiments with my appearance have all been steps toward building the life I want. It's a work in progress, but for the first time in a long time, I feel hopeful about the future. I'm excited to see where this journey takes me, and I'm grateful to everyone who's helped me along the way. Thank you, Reddit, for being part of that journey. Hi, Reddit. It's Amanda again. It's been a long, tumultuous road since I first discovered my parents had been dyeing my hair without my consent. Over the past 8 months, I've worked hard to rebuild my life, embracing independence and finding ways to express myself. But even as I moved forward, the weight of my fractured relationship with my parents lingered. I wasn't sure if we'd ever reconcile, and frankly, part of me didn't want to. Then, a few weeks ago, I received a letter that changed everything. The letter arrived on a Wednesday, tucked in with the rest of the mail. At first, I thought it was just another guilt-trippy note from my mom, like the one she'd sent in the weeks after I moved out. But as I read the first few lines, I realized this one was different. "Dear Amanda," it began. "We've had a lot of time to reflect on everything that's happened, and we want to start by saying how deeply sorry we are for the pain we caused you. What we did was wrong. We see that now, and we regret not listening to you when you tried to tell us how you felt." The letter went on to acknowledge their mistakes in detail. They admitted that their actions had been invasive and disrespectful, and that their attempts to justify those actions were hurtful. They also expressed their pride in the steps I'd taken to build my own life and their hope that we could find a way to mend our relationship. I read the letter twice, then a third time, trying to process the mix of emotions it stirred up. On the one hand, I felt a glimmer of validation. They were finally acknowledging the harm they'd done. But on the other hand, I couldn't shake the memory of all the times they dismissed my feelings and doubled down on their actions. Was this letter enough to make up for that? I showed the letter to Lila, who has been my sounding board throughout this whole ordeal. She read it carefully, then looked up at me. "I think they're trying," she said. "But it's up to you whether you're ready to meet them halfway." After a few days of thinking it over, I decided to reach out. I sent them a short text, thanking them for the letter and suggesting we meet at a neutral location, a coffee shop downtown. I wanted to make it clear that I was open to talking, but I wasn't ready to let them back into my life without some serious boundaries in place. The day of the meeting, I arrived at the coffee shop early and snagged a corner table by the window. I ordered a chai latte and tried to calm my nerves as I waited. When my parents walked in, I could see the tension on their faces. My mom was clutching her purse like a lifeline, and my dad looked like he'd rehearsed what to say a dozen times. "Hi, Amanda," my mom said softly as they sat down. "Thank you for meeting us." I nodded, keeping my tone neutral. "Thanks for coming." There was an awkward pause as we settled into our seats, but eventually, my dad broke the silence. "We meant everything we said in the letter," he began. "We know we messed up, and we want to do whatever it takes to fix things." Hearing him say those words out loud was both comforting and surreal. For so long, I'd felt like they didn't see me as an individual with my own autonomy. Now, they were finally acknowledging the impact of their actions. My mom chimed in, her voice trembling slightly. "We thought we were helping you, but we see now that we were wrong. We didn't respect your boundaries, and we're so sorry for that." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of their words sink in. "I appreciate your apology," I said, "but I need to be honest with you. What you did really hurt me. It made me feel like I couldn't trust you, and that's not something I can just forget. My mom nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. We understand, she said, and we don't expect you to forgive us overnight. We just want a chance to show you that we can do better. The rest of the conversation was a mix of apologies, explanations, and cautious optimism. I told them about the boundaries I needed in order to feel safe and respected. Things like no unsolicited advice about my life choices, no guilt tripping, and no dismissing my feelings. They agreed without hesitation, which was a relief, but I knew actions would speak louder than words. As the conversation wound down, my dad said something that stuck with me. We're proud of you, Amanda, he said. You've shown us a strength and independence we didn't fully appreciate before. We want to support you, not hold you back. It was the first time in years that I felt like they truly saw me for who I was, not who they wanted me to be. In the weeks since that meeting, our relationship has slowly started to improve. We've had a few more coffee dates, and my mom even came to one of the open studio nights at Clara's gallery to see some of my paintings. She didn't make any comments about my brightly colored hair or eclectic fashion choices, which I took as a good sign. That said, I'm still cautious. Trust takes time to rebuild, and I'm not ready to let them back into my life completely. I've made it clear that I need space to continue growing and figuring out who I am, and so far, they've respected that.